who had died. You should have seen them. They were just skeletons. I think they were just really trying to keep aside from all the horrible things that were going on in that society. They must have known what was happening. They had a crematorium. The smells were coming up, and oh my gosh, it was something. Never heard of it until we were there and saw these poor guys, skeletons, walking around, lying in heaps. We were going pretty fast through Germany, and we finally got to the Lech River, and there was decided to send a patrol over there, across the river, to do a determination of what kind of opposition we'd be running into if we crossed the Lech. Now there happened to be an underground tunnel under the Lech, which was really, the purpose was to generate electricity. The Lech River generated the electricity for the whole town. And so we went down there that night, went to reconnoiter through a tunnel where they had electrical generators going, and had met really minimal resistance. And were greeted by spasmodic gunfire, which we returned. Of course, being a medic, I had no part of returning the gunfire. We did eliminate the gunfire and got across onto the land across the Lech. We were met with machine gun fire soon after we started up the road, and were beset upon with a machine gun right away. And one of our kids got hit pretty badly in the hip and groin region with machine gun bullets. So of course, the thing I did was I put some patches on him and got a couple of my buddies to carry him to a farmhouse temporarily. It was pitch black at night, which was really spooky. There was a question of what to do getting back across the Lech River for medical treatment. I knew that something had to be done right away, and I asked some of our troopers to give me a hand and take the wounded GI, to a home. There happened to be a professor at the university there, Landsberg, and we stayed there overnight because our outfit had left and gone back across the river, and I was a little bit upset about that, but it worked out okay. There happened to be a professor at the university who owned this home, and he was very gracious, he and his wife, and fixed up a place for us in the basement of their home where I could administer a shot of morphine and do a good job bandaging his wound, my wounded friend. The men who helped me carry him to the house went back to the outfit and left me with my wounded comrade. The next morning, after I got my patient calmed down and given one shot of morphine, a syringe of morphine, and we slept, he was able to sleep, and I slept down there with him, and got up in the morning and had to relieve myself in the bathroom. And as I was sitting there on the pot looking out the window, well, imagine when I opened the window, my surprise and sort of shock to see that I was probably 50 yards from a machine gun nest. I saw the machine gun nest that was about probably 25 yards away from me. And I said, oh boy, it inhibited me quite a bit then. We had to get the guy back across the river, though, and I wasn't sure how we were going to do it. A German lady came to the house. She said, I heard there's an American soldier here, and I heard that he's a sanitator. That's what the Germans called medics. Will you come with me to my house? I want to surrender my 2 sons. They're German soldiers, and the war is over, and I don't want them to be here anymore. And I think they'll be safe with you. And knowing that they would be safe with me, and I walked over to her house and met the sons, and we decided that they'd come back with me and we'd go back across the river. There was a small footbridge across the river. So I told them to come back with me and that we would go together across the river. So the 2 boys and I walked back to the doctor's house where my wounded comrade was. And luckily, the doctor had a stretcher, which was really lucky that he gave us. He was so nice. I'll never forget how wonderful they were, that family. We put the guy on the stretcher, borrowed a sheet, borrowed a sheet, and made some white flags, surrender flags. And when we walked out of the house, 2 German soldiers carrying a stretcher, me back there carrying a white flag. It must have been a sight for those machine gunners up on the hill. Thank God they respected the white flag, and we were able to walk across this footbridge. Looking back now, the only thing I did for my comrade was to give him a shot of morphine and change his bandage just once in the morning. We marched across the bridge, and luckily waiting there, I'm sure that they saw the white flag, was an ambulance, a GI ambulance, and a doctor met us at the other side of the Lech River where our troops were, and did a quick examination and told me one of the nicest compliments I've ever had in my life. You've done a good job. You've done a really good job taking care of this man. He's in good shape. So that was very pleasing for me. He's in good shape.
Saved his life.
And I probably saved his life. Some of my buddies across the river told me that my only danger in coming, they thought, with the white flag was one GI, American GI, who was ready to shoot us.
The 2 German boys? They weren't in uniform?
All of us. The German boys were in uniform, yes.
Oh.
So we made it across okay. And I found out later that my outfit, the ones who I'd come across with, had gotten lost and gone way down the river and crossed back about 3 miles down, so that we were completely by ourselves there. We came across the next day. The German soldiers who were manning the machine gun had surrendered. And as I walked across there, we found that there were 350 or 400 Hungarian troops who had surrendered. And we marched the Hungarians back across the river at that time. So happy that my patient had survived and flourished. Found out later that he was in good shape. And that was about the story of the Lech River.
My father was decorated with a Silver Star for valor for pulling that one kid out from under that machine gun nest with that doctor. But to me, what he did on the Lech River of staying behind while his unit evacuated, and then later walking out across that bridge with those wounded soldiers, with that wounded soldier, seemed to me to be just as worthy of being decorated. You know, I wonder if it had something to do with the fact that it would have been embarrassing for the commanding officer to put in a citation for decoration, you know, considering he had been left behind.
The war was just about over then, and it was over. And we didn't intercept anyone coming back from Italy, no Gestapos or anything like that. We were then separated and sent to different outfits, and we were sent to France, Camp Lucky Strike, to get ready to do the invasion of Japan. And I said, oh God, you know, that's it. I can just see hitting those beaches in Japan. It was terrible. And so I was sitting in a bar drinking in Paris, and the word came out that we dropped the atomic bomb on Japan, and after the second one they surrendered, and we were all going home. So that was pretty much the end of my war experiences. Next move was saluting the Statue of Liberty off a ship, and awfully close to tears when I saw that. We got off in New York, and they flew us home on transports, and I landed in San Pedro, Fort MacArthur. And it was a wonderful, wonderful get-together I had. Within 3 days, my father drove and picked me up at the Fort MacArthur. And that pretty well ended my war experiences.
7 p.m. Eastern Wartime, Bob Trout reporting. The Japanese have accepted our terms fully. That's the word we've just received from the White House in Washington. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the end of the Second World War. The United Nations on land, on the sea.
Mark, I was born on June 28, 1923, in a house in 2033 65th Street, Brooklyn, New York. And at the time, the doctors would come to the house to deliver the child. And so he came, Dr. Gillis came to the house and brought me out and the womb, and that was my start there. We lived in a 2-story house that abutted 2 other houses. When I was 5 years old, I started school at Public School 205, and walked to school about 5 blocks I remember in the wintertime, my first winter, leaning forward into the wind because it was so cold and the winds were blowing tremendously hard. Brooklyn Public School 205 was probably 90% Jewish and 10% Italian. And so when a Jewish holiday occurred, we had 6 first grades, and they'd combine all 6 of the first grade classes